The wrong gun was placed on the prop table. No one noticed. Until Yul Brynner looked at it, raised his hand without saying a word, and the entire shoot stopped. Sonora Desert, Mexico. Summer 1966. The kind of heat that makes the horizon shimmer and turns breathing into work. A Western film set built in the middle of nowhere, wooden facades, dirt streets, the skeletal framework of a frontier town that would exist only as long as the cameras needed it to. 70 crew members. 12 actors. 4 cameras. One director who was 3 days behind schedule and running out of patience. They were shooting the climactic gunfight scene. The kind that required precision timing, multiple camera angles, squibs rigged to wooden posts, and prop guns that looked real enough to make audiences believe but were engineered to be safe. Everything had been checked. The armorer had inspected every weapon that morning. The director had reviewed the shot list. The actors knew their marks. The cameras were positioned. They were ready to shoot. Except for one thing. The wrong gun. It sat on the prop table among a dozen others. Period-accurate Colt revolvers, all modified to fire blanks safely. All except one. That one had been brought from another production, a real weapon that had been used for close-up insert shots where you needed to see the actual mechanics of the gun. It wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the main set. It certainly wasn't supposed to be loaded. But someone had made a mistake. A simple, understandable, almost inevitable mistake in the chaos of a film production. The kind of mistake that happens 1,000 times on 1,000 sets, and usually means nothing. Except when it means everything. The young prop master, a kid named Danny Reeves, 23 years old, eager to prove himself, grabbed the gun from the table without checking. Why would he check? Everything on that table was supposed to be safe. That was the whole point of having an armorer, having protocols, having systems. He carried it across the dusty set toward the actors. Toward Yul Brynner, who stood in the shade of the saloon facade, waiting. Brynner was wearing all black. Black shirt. Black pants. Black gun belt. His bald head caught the harsh desert sun. He stood perfectly still, the way he always did between takes, not relaxed, but contained. Economy of movement. Nothing wasted. Danny approached with the gun held casually at his side, smiling, making small talk. "Mr. Brynner, we're ready for the..." Brynner's eyes moved to the gun. Just his eyes. His body didn't shift. His expression didn't change. But something happened in that moment. Something the kid couldn't quite identify but felt immediately. The air changed. Brynner raised his right hand. Palm forward. Fingers spread. The universal gesture for stop. He didn't say a word. The kid stopped walking. Confused. "Mr. Brynner? Is something. Put it down." Brynner's voice was quiet. Almost gentle. But it carried across the entire set with absolute clarity. "Don't move. Just set it down. Right there. On the ground." Danny looked down at the gun in his hand. "This? It's just the prop for the..." I said, "Put it down." Still quiet. Still gentle. But now everyone on set was looking. The cinematographer had straightened up from his camera. The script supervisor had lowered her clipboard. The other actors had turned. Even the director, who had been shouting instructions to the gaffer about lighting, had gone silent. Danny set the gun on the ground. Carefully. His hands were starting to shake, though he didn't know why. Brynner took one step forward. Just one. He crouched down beside the gun, still not touching it, and looked at it for a long moment. Then he reached out, picked it up with 2 fingers by the trigger guard, and opened the cylinder. 6 brass cartridges gleamed in the desert sun. Live rounds. Not blanks. Real ammunition. Brynner didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The set was completely silent now. 70 people holding their breath. The only sound was the distant generator and the wind moving through the wooden facades. Brynner stood slowly, the gun still held by the trigger guard, hanging from his fingers like something contaminated. He looked at Danny. Not angry. Not accusatory. Just looking. Measuring. "How many people did you walk past carrying this?" Brynner asked. Danny's face had gone white. I don't know. Maybe 10? 15? And where were you taking it?" "To you." "For the scene." "To me." Brynner repeated it quietly, almost to himself. "To me, to hand to me, to aim at." He gestured toward the other actors positioned across the set. Them. The director had made his way over now, his face showing the dawning horror of understanding. "Jesus Christ. Danny, where did you?" "It was on the prop table," Danny said, his voice cracking. "I just grabbed it." "I thought." "You didn't think," Brynner said. Still quiet. Still gentle. "That's the problem." He turned to the crowd of crew members who had gathered. "Who's the armorer on this production?" An older man pushed forward. "Carl Martinez, 60 years old, 30 years in the business, responsible for weapons safety on 47 films." His face was ashen. "I am Mr. Brynner. I checked every gun this morning. I don't know how." "That's not on you," Brynner interrupted. "That's on whoever brought this gun onto this set. That's on whoever failed to mark it. That's on a system that assumed instead of verified." He paused. "But mostly it's on me." The director frowned. "On you?" "Yul, you didn't." "I did," Brynner said. "I've been making films for 15 years. I know what a loaded gun looks like. I saw it the moment the kid picked it up. The way it sat in his hand. The balance. And I waited 3 full seconds before I stopped him. He held up the gun again, still careful, still controlled. In those 3 seconds he could have tripped. Dropped it. The hammer could have caught on something. Any number of things could have happened. And I waited because I wanted to be sure I wasn't overreacting. The silence that followed was different now. Heavier. "I wanted to be sure," Brynner repeated, "that I wasn't embarrassing myself by stopping a scene over nothing. I prioritized my own ego over everyone's safety. For 3 seconds. That's how long it takes to kill someone." Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. To understand why those 3 seconds mattered so much to Yul Brynner, you need to understand where he came from. Not the actor. The man before the actor. Yul Brynner was born on Sakhalin Island in 1920. His childhood was chaos and survival, fleeing Russia during the revolution, living in China, eventually ending up in Paris with almost nothing. He'd been a circus acrobat, a nightclub singer, a street musician. He'd gone hungry. He'd fought. He'd learned early that the world didn't care about your intentions or your excuses. When World War II started, he'd worked with the French resistance. Not in the glamorous way films depicted it. He'd helped refugees, forged documents, moved people through dangerous territories. He'd seen what happened when people made mistakes. When they assumed something was safe. When they waited 1 second too long to act. He never talked about those years. Not in interviews, not to other actors, not even to close friends. But everyone who worked with him noticed something. Yul Brynner didn't do anything casually. Every movement was measured. Every decision was calculated. He didn't improvise on set because improvisation meant variables you couldn't control. And he absolutely never, ever touched a weapon without checking it himself. Over 15 years in Hollywood, he'd developed a reputation. Difficult. Demanding. Inflexible about certain things. Directors learn not to rush him during scenes with guns. Other actors learn not to joke around when weapons were present. Some people thought he was paranoid. Some thought he was arrogant. What they didn't understand was that Yul Brynner had seen real guns kill real people. He'd held dying men who'd been shot by weapons that weren't supposed to be loaded. He'd lived through chaos where the difference between a prop and a real gun could mean the difference between going home that night or not going home at all. Hollywood was pretend. But the danger was real. And Yul Brynner had never forgotten the difference. Now, standing in the Sonoran Desert with a loaded gun in his hand and a terrified young prop master in front of him, all of that history was present in the way he stood, the way he spoke, the way he made the entire set understand without raising his voice that something serious had just happened. He walked over to the prop table. Set the gun down carefully, away from the other weapons. Then he turned to Carl Martinez, the armorer. Carl, I want every weapon on this set cleared. Right now. One at a time. I want you to personally check each one. I want everyone, actors, crew, director, everyone, to watch you do it. And from now on, before any weapon is handed to any actor, I want you to show them personally that it's clear. No exceptions. Carl nodded. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Brynner turned to Danny, who looked like he might be sick. You made a mistake. An honest one. But mistakes with weapons don't get second chances. Do you understand that now? Yes, sir. Danny's voice was barely a whisper. Good. Then you're going to help Carl check every gun. You're going to learn what a loaded weapon looks like, how it feels, how it balances. You're going to understand the difference between safe and dangerous until you could identify it in your sleep. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Brynner nodded. Then he did something unexpected. He put his hand on Danny's shoulder. Just rested it there. The gesture was gentle, almost fatherly. The reason I'm not sending you off this set, Brynner said quietly, is because you will never make this mistake again. Someone who's never held a loaded gun by accident doesn't understand the weight of it. You do now. That makes you more valuable, not less. But only if you learn from it. Danny nodded, unable to speak. Brynner turned to the director. We're not shooting today. The director opened his mouth to protest. 3 days behind schedule, the sun was perfect, they had everything set up, but something in Brynner's expression stopped him. We're not shooting, Brynner repeated. Because right now, everyone on this set is thinking about what almost happened. They're shaken. When people are shaken, they make more mistakes. So we're going to take the rest of the day. Carl is going to do his check. Everyone is going to watch. Everyone is going to understand that this matters. And tomorrow, when we're ready, we'll shoot the scene. The director looked at him for a long moment. Then nodded. Okay. Yell. Okay. While others measured speed, Brynner was already acting. The weapon check took 2 hours. Carl Martinez went through every gun on set, 23 in total. He cleared each one, showed the cast and crew how to verify it was safe, explained what to look for. Yul Brynner watched every single check. So did everyone else. When they were done, Brynner gathered the cast, the actors who would be in the gunfight scene. Tomorrow, he said, we're going to shoot this scene. And every one of you is going to be holding a weapon that looks real, that sounds real when it fires, that will make the audience believe you're in actual danger. But you won't be in danger because we're going to do this right. He paused, looking at each of them. But I need you to understand something. These weapons, even the safe ones, demand respect. Not fear. Respect. You don't wave them around between takes. You don't point them at anyone unless the camera is rolling and the scene calls for it. You don't treat them like toys. Because the moment you start treating them casually is the moment you forget to check. And that's when people die. One of the younger actors, a kid from New York doing his first Western, raised his hand hesitantly. Mr. Brynner, have you ever seen someone get hurt on a set? Brynner was quiet for a moment. Yes, he said finally. Once. A long time ago. That's why I stopped the kid today. He didn't elaborate. He never did. The next day, they shot the scene. It took 11 hours. Brynner insisted on checking every gun himself before each take. No one complained. The footage was perfect. 20 years later, Danny Reeves became one of the most respected armorers in Hollywood. He never had a single safety incident on any production he worked on. When people asked why he was so meticulous, so obsessive about protocols, he would tell them about the day Yul Brynner raised his hand and stopped the set. "He didn't save my career," Danny would say. "He saved my life. And probably a dozen others. And he did it without raising his voice." Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. After Brynner died in 1985, they found notes in his personal effects. One entry, undated, read simply, "Real guns kill real people. Props are pretend. Never confuse the two. Never assume. Always check. 3 seconds is enough time to lose everything." The gun from that day in the Sonora Desert was destroyed. But the lesson lived on. In every armorer who learned from Danny Reeves. In every actor who checked their weapon before a take. In every production that prioritized safety over schedule. Because Yul Brynner understood something Hollywood kept forgetting. You can reshoot a scene. You can't reshoot a life.